As
I love that guy. I love that guy. Alexi Old is an absolute godsend, man. I had the pleasure of having him on my podcast, and he's a straight gentleman, man. I can't say enough great things about him. Yeah,
live and in public as you will. All right, so welcome to the 6th round retro. We are covering Strikeforce 1, Frank Shamrock versus Cesar Gracie. Now, my co-host for today is nothing other than top shelf combat sports journalist, Mr. Vic Rodriguez. Vic, how are you?
Good, I guess. Just got home from work, had a little coffee. I'm living the dream because now I get to share a good little stroll down memory lane with you.
So that's always nice. Shout out to the nostalgia. Shit. So yeah, there's no UFC, there's no Bellator, there's no PFL this week. There is the Dana White Tuesday Night Contender Series, but outside of that,
By the way, Dana White Contender Series, there is a written preview that'll be coming up on Bloody Elbow as well. Please be sure to check that out to get a primer on everybody who's going to be on that and part of that event.
Part of that's going to be Greg Hardy, NFL, former NFL player with a little bit of a rap sheet. He's making his professional debut, so that's all right. So the date for this event was March 10th, 2006, and the venue was the HP Pavilion in San Jose, California. San Jose, of course, we associate with Bellator. Of course, Scott Coker. This is Scott Coker's first really big promotion. This is him coming out. This is like right after The Ultimate Fighter. It's like a year after The Ultimate Fighter 1 finished up. So this was a prime time for anyone who wanted to get into the MMA game to go ahead and do so because the money was there, the attention was there, it was the time. So we got Strikeforce. And it was pretty cool, I gotta say. I think the card was pretty decent. They had Phil Baroni announcing, which kind of geeked me out. I don't remember him announcing the very first Strikeforce event, but I do remember him commentating a bit over in Pride and did an extremely terrible job. Said some really racist things and derogatory remarks towards the Japanese fighters. So I was a little shocked to see him out here doing his doing some commentating. And Chuck Norris was in attendance, so it's a good event whenever Chuck Norris is there. All right, so this event was capped off with Frank Shamrock defeating Cesar Gracie by knockout just 21 seconds into the first round. Frank was basically kind of away from the sport for a little bit. He was in the UFC, he won the middleweight title, and then between the years of 2000 and 2006, he only fought one time. So he was insanely inactive and really on that. He was like a myth, at this point in time. He was like the legend of Frank Shamrock, the myth of Frank Shamrock. Like, oh, man, if Shamrock came back, he would destroy everybody. Yeah, maybe he wouldn't. Maybe he would. Whatever. The debate was going on, and Shamrock was still like that mythical creature. And we're finally getting him back in mainstream MMA.
Yeah, that's true. And let's remember also that in this case, when you're talking about Frank Shamrock at that time, you're talking about a guy who had been in the shadow of fame, also sort of had been really getting by more than anything by his athleticism and his technique. He wasn't just like, oh, this is this guy's brother, adopted brother, whatever the case may be. It's not just a name. There really is a very serious pedigree here for combat. And this sort of aptitude that he had to pick these things up and really put them in, to have a very well-rounded game as early as he did. So it truly, in many senses, he was a pioneer. I believe that at that point, I'm not entirely sure, because I don't remember 100% of the details here, but I do remember that Frank, I guess, had grown tired of a couple of problems with the grind of the sport. He had some injuries. I think he was trying to expand into other ventures and explore other avenues for capital. And, it just was a thing that just fell into everybody's, respective laps, because California, you have to remember, had just recently legalized MMA, and Strikeforce had originally been a kickboxing organization, as that was Scott Coker's forte. It's kind of where he cut his teeth in the fight business, and they decided to expand and have an MMA show. And why not? Let's have a Shamrock versus Gracie of our own, even though for reasons that I'm pretty sure we're going to get into, that perhaps sounds a hell of a lot better on paper than it actually was.
Yeah, and so this was Gracie's only pro MMA bout ever. He didn't have any before, he didn't have any after. So this was a one and done. And I don't think Gracie was ready for this. Shamrock was just way too diverse, and Gracie was primarily a striker. Primarily a grappler, of course. So, Shamrock comes out, jab, leg kick, jab, cross, leg kick, overhand right, and drops Gracie. And I mean, some academic grounded pound, and it was a wrap. So Gracie really had no business being in this fight. But kudos to him for even stepping up and taking it in the first place.
Yeah, I mean, and it also made sense given the scope of, Shamrock, I think, had already been living in California at the time. Well, I mean, he grew up in California, but Gracie was a Bay Area local, again, with the big name, but he just wasn't, number one, he wasn't an athlete. Number two, he wasn't a striker. I mean, I'm not going to say that the guy wasn't tough, because that wouldn't be true, but your ability to withstand that kind of concussive damage, you learn those things, even if you're not that great at it, you can learn to hang on a little longer. He didn't have that in him, and that's just the product of him being a grappler more than anything else, not really probably doing any striking training until this fight opportunity came up. So yeah, man, it was kind of sad, but it got the audience riled up. You got Frank walking around talking about, this is my house. And you're like, okay, no one's disputing that, but thank you for clarifying. And yeah, it was just a weird but fun way that we get a highlight reel finish, but also a great inaugural event for the a region that was really hurting the most for a high-profile MMA promotion.
I think you really nailed it with the whole, Frank, saying this was his house, and because, this was exciting because it was like Frank Shamrock's back, and that's what everybody wanted to see after him being away from the sport for so long, and everyone understanding that he had so much potential and the sky really was the limit for him. And, it was nice to see him get back. It was almost, and for those who are football fans, it's like what if Barry Sanders would have came back to football when he left the Lions. That's what this kind of was for me. It was a great that you just knew was so great, and you wanted to see him compete, but for his own personal reasons, he's not. And so it was cool, and it was special. And he only won one more fight after this, but his remaining 4 fights were absolutely just monumental. They were all exciting, all just bangers. They were all just bangers. So I highly recommend watching this one and watching all the ones after this as well, because his lone victory after this was Phil Baroni, who was commentating. So full circle on the whole Phil Baroni tip. All right, so before that, we had Cung Lee making his professional MMA debut, taking on Mike Altman. What's up, Vic?
I had myself muted for a moment. I just wanted to just cap off the Frank Shamrock thing. Even in his losses, they're worth checking out some of his fights. Or actually, I'd go with this whole anthology of fights. You know what I mean? I'd really recommend sitting down, breaking it up into chunks, watching 2 fights a day, because there's something really special about it. You look at him and the rest of the talents in the field at the time, and you'll really see what sets him apart. It's worth watching, especially that last fight against Nick Diaz, man. That was surreal again, but very much worth your time. So I'm sorry, we're talking about Altman and what's his face here?
Cung Lee, yes. Cung Lee made his professional MMA debut. Altman was coming in 1 and 2, so he was pretty much just feed for Cung Lee, so to speak. And man, Lee was really methodical here. He did a lot of measuring, showed a lot of patience, showed a lot of composure. He started finding his range with spinning kicks of all things, and even landed a pretty sweet kick to the neck that really got the attention of Altman. So he hits Altman with this spinning kick, and then he leaps in with that southpaw right hook that instantly knocked out Altman. I mean, Altman did the timber and just fell like a tree being cut down in the woods. It was very impressive to see that in Cung Lee's debut, and it really left us wanting more. You know, it was a quick knockout, and we all were just like, man, like that's awesome. We want more of this. Like, yes, please. I'll take seconds. And so this was an excellent prelude to what would be a wildly successful career in mixed martial arts and in Strikeforce for Cung Lee. Ended up capturing the middleweight belt from Frank Shamrock. And, oh, man, that fight is just absolutely insane. Shamrock breaks his forearm, or I guess I should say Cung Lee breaks Shamrock's forearm with a kick. It's, man, that fight is just flame. Absolutely flame. Cung Lee, you know, he went 2-2 in the UFC. He had some epic moments before retiring in 2014 and really going into the acting and all that. Altman, he would go on to get submitted by Elliot Marshall, and then he called it a career after that.
No shame in being submitted by Marshall, who was already at the time a whiz in jiu-jitsu. The thing with Cung Lee, you know, he'd already been doing some film work and like having that boom. Then he decided to get in, and people always say like, well, he handpicked his opponents or whatever. Like, look, I don't really know that anything that he accomplished have really convinced the commission that he should have been fighting higher level opposition than what he did. I mean, taking on a guy who's 1-2 when you're making your pro debut, you don't really have like you know, NCAA Olympic record that's like asked to make anything that would look like, you know, a case to justify that it wasn't a mismatch. So, you know, you kind of get away with that. But the thing about watching Cung Lee fight, and much like we said about the Frank Shamrock bout, I mean, you really should see all of his fights. Don't let the last, you know, the bad losses that he had in the UFC, don't let that sway you. He was really a talent to behold, even if he wasn't, again, he wasn't fighting the elite. He didn't have to. And besides, most of the talent already.
I think he did fight some pretty elite talent. I mean, you got Frank Shamrock, you got
Scott Smith, not the entirety, right?
Rich Franklin, Michael Bisping. I think he fought some pretty.
Yeah, he did fight Bisping, right? He did, but I mean, like, he didn't really have wins that would be, you know, enough to get him into like the top 10, top 5 or anything like that. But he didn't really need to either. You know what I mean? It was there just for you to see the spectacle of Cung Lee, and if he succeeds, which he most likely will, then, you know, hey, it'll be fun for everybody. Yeah, man, this was just another beautiful performance from him, and again, because anyone, like, I remember when Gus Johnson on that Strikeforce thing after the UFC bought Strikeforce, they were like, we can see all kinds of crossover, and there's Cung Lee, and everyone's like, look at this asshole right here. Like, but if Cung Lee continued fighting, he'd probably be fighting Anderson Silva now in his current state, and it wouldn't be so fucking funny then. You know what I mean? Well, look, I've already gotten a little far ahead of that, but yeah.
I wouldn't be surprised if that fight actually did happen, to be quite honest. I think Cung Lee, he only fought Bisping to promote his movie, I believe. He had a movie coming out, and so he was like, yeah, let me go ahead and sign up for a fight, even though I haven't fought in 2 years.
Yeah, but he's popular enough at this point. Like, the Ultimate Fighter China he was the host. He wasn't one of the coaches. He was a host for a reason. Been doing a bunch of movies and stuff in Asia. He was well recognized to the audience. Oh,
Vic's frozen. He's
that was the
you froze on us.
Am I good?
Zane Simon's trying to call in from Remulag, so it's giving you that robotic sound again. I think you might be back. I think you're back.
Okay. Someone in the Bloody Elbow comments once astutely explained to another commenter that, you know, when it comes to Cung Lee representing the UFC for the expansion, it's like the UFC is not selling him; he's selling the Chinese the UFC. You know, like that. His pull is he was that much of a star, even if he did the fame in the U.S. or at least among people that are a little outside of the sport.
Yeah, and what he did to Rich Franklin was just devastating.
Absolutely. Yeah, that was fucking wild.
One of the cleanest knockouts you will ever see in
How do you hit a guy to make his head go this way, but his head actually ends up going this way? It's like that's oh god, that was ugly.
It was bad. All right, so Cung Lee
I remember
Cung Lee had an awesome debut. Simmer down, Vic. calm it down. Yeah, Cung Lee, insane debut. He definitely delivered on all fronts, and like I said, had us wanting more. So everyone was stoked to see what he would do in the future. So awesome showing. All right, before that, we had a lightweight title fight. This was for the vacant title, of course, since they're obviously the inaugural event. But Clay Guida defeated Josh Thompson by unanimous decision, capturing the lightweight title. And one of the funnier things is they didn't call him Clay Guida. They called him Clayton Guida, which is intriguing because obviously we just saw him this past Saturday get submitted by Charles Oliveira. Clay Guida, everyone knows Clay Guida, but Clayton Guida, who is this Clayton Guida guy that you brought in here?
Yeah.
All right, so Guida comes into Strikeforce 18-4. He actually came in on a loss, which is unique, to go right into a title fight. And considering Thompson, who he was already in the UFC, already known for that, getting knocked out by Yves Edwards with that brilliant head kick. But this fight was basically vintage Clay Guida. And now that I see this fight, like looking back, it's like, damn. And then seeing him this past weekend, his game really hasn't changed. Like he's the same guy then that he is now, except his hair's a little bit longer, and he has more tattoos. But other than that, this is a classic Guida performance. He comes out, he gets the takedown, throws his ground strikes, and just doesn't let off the gas at all. Like he was just nonstop going for it. It did get a little gritty at times, and he got caught sticking his eyes or his fingers in Josh Thompson's eyes and got a point deducted for it. But I mean, he pretty much easily handled Josh Thompson here, I would say.
Yeah, I mean, this was it is weird that you get just like inaugural event, you get a title shot, but actually a pretty cool performance. Again, looking perhaps what both of these we're seeing these progressions of this over this period of time in which they both come in, they fight for a title. They're still kind of like, you can see where they're rough around the edges, but you see that there's promise there. Then they start polishing things up and become elite guys in their own right. I know some people might scoff at the idea of, but I mean,
oh, hold on, Vic. After you said scoff, you just kind of dropped out. And you're still going. Hey, Mr. Roboto. Hey, Mr. Roboto. Mr. Roboto, can you hear me? Oh, it's so bad. And it's never ending. It's just
no. Bum ass internet. Oh my god.
You gotta kick that AOL dial up, bro. You're still on
I guess I do.
CD that's like 99 hours for free. After you said scoff at Guida, you're pretty much it cut out after that.
Okay, so I'm back then, I presume, yeah?
Yes.
Okay, yeah. Wow, only on MMANation.com where you're gonna get this kind of fucking quality right here. Yeah. So yeah, I don't know. I said something about how like it was a lot like Clay Guida was the elite, but he was very close to it. He was one of those top guys for a very long time, and you really had to get through him to get anywhere. So yeah, another fun fight. I mean, it's MMA than you might think, considering when this took place. But yeah, a lot of the scrambles and exchanges were super cool, and it was just great to see these guys go after it.
Probably the most interesting part of the whole this whole bout in it of itself is the fact that Chuck Norris is the one who awarded the belt to Clay Guida, which is pretty fucking badass if you ask me. Chuck Norris is awarding you the belt. It doesn't get better than that. I've never seen anything better.
Yeah, it doesn't get any more racist. That's a good idea. I like that.
What does that mean? What do you mean? Get out of here. You don't like Chuck Norris, bro?
I don't like what he's turned into. I don't like the caricature of, no.
Man, come on.
No. His politics are toxic. I die on this hill.
I'm sure your politics are toxic as well, Vic.
Nah, dude, I'm for the children. Wu-Tang is for the children.
All right. So Chuck Norris awarded the belt to Clay Guida. Guida would immediately lose the belt in his next outing, dropping a split decision to Gilbert Melendez. And Guida had a Shudo bout. He had a WEC bout. And then he went on and hit the UFC, where he's actually been for 12 years. Believe it or not.
12 years. Oh, my God. Like, I was thinking about that during the Embedded, I think it was, where him and CM Punk were at Wrigley Field, which shows that that's your penance, Chicago, for winning the World Series. Now your Chicago guys got to fucking lose at home. Guida and Punk got styled on. But anyway, I was looking at it and I'm thinking, like, man, I've been watching this guy fight for so long. Like, how long has his whole career been and everything like that? And it's like, now you bring that up, it's much more impressive hearing that number than
he's been a mainstay for a long time.
Yeah,
pretty crazy to think about. I've never been like a big Clay Guida fan per se. I didn't like the fact that he came out trying to hold people down. That really bothered me. He was never really getting a lot of finishes. But I thought he was cool, real energetic. I thought he was good for the sport in terms of being a person. But he's been around for a hot minute. Same with Thompson, man. Obviously retired now, but he went on a crazy unbeaten streak after this fight, ultimately defeating Gilbert Melendez to win the lightweight belt back, and then made it back to the UFC. Didn't get the best.
I don't remember Thompson retiring.
No, he retired after the Pitbull fight.
Oh, okay. Well, if you say so. I don't remember any of that shit.
Yep, Josh Thompson called it a career after getting brutally knocked out by Patricky Pitbull and Bellator. So so he got back to the UFC and then reconnected with Scott Coker and Bellator. So he finished out his career 22-9. I'm sure they could bring him back for another money fight, something fun, but I wouldn't bet on it. I think he's going to stay retired.
Oh well.
But Chuck Norris was there. All right, so before that, this is one bout that I have not been able to find anywhere on the internet. So if you're better at the internet than I am, please post this fight in the comments section or a link to it, at least. Eugene Jackson defeated George Ortiz, or is it Jorge Ortiz? We're going to say George Ortiz.
You know what, motherfucker, it's Jorge. What page are you using for reference? I hate this so much. Why you got to be like this? Why you got to be like this, my guy?
Well, anyways, Jackson went by unanimous decision. Jackson, UFC old head. He debuted back in 1999 in the UFC. He went 3-4, all ending inside of the distance for better or worse, including that 10-second knockout he sustained at the hands of Mark Weir. If you guys remember that at UFC 38, that was a pretty brutal knockout. Weir comes out and throws like this little weird flashy kick and then just kind of jabs Eugene, and he was out cold. It was wild. Definitely weird.
That sucks.
Yeah. And that's really like what I know Jackson for the most. I know he was in like one of the first UFC video games. I remember that too. But as far as his fighting, that Mark Weir fight will just never be erased from my brain.
I gotta hear what you're gonna say about the next one.
Well, couldn't find this fight, but Jackson did finish up 3-1 in Strikeforce, which is pretty cool. He did get knocked out by Joe Briggs in 2007, so he called it a career after that. Ortiz hit the Mexican regional scene, went 1-1 with Bellator, and then he went back to the regional scene to retire in 2012. But couldn't tell you what happened in that fight other than Eugene Jackson won a decision. All right, before that, we have Vic's favorite fighter, Mike Kyle,
Oh, yeah, baby. Fucking hit me. What's good?
Oh man, so Mike Kyle took on Krzysztof Jasinski, and this fight.
You look like you're tattling on him. So I want to play with the chuck, you motherfucker.
So this fight ended in a technical draw. Today we would call it a no contest, but this was a technical draw at 2 minutes and 2 seconds into round one, because Kyle poked Jasinski in the eyeball.
Polish guy. Fuck, what are you doing? Why?
Mike Kyle, always known for being a dirty fighter, pokes Krzysztof in the eye, and for some reason it was ruled a draw instead of a no contest. Now, Kyle, he came in 10-4, had some UFC experience already, had that reputation of being a dirty fighter. Krzysztof came in 12-5 with some weird regional experience in Minnesota and like Manitoba, Canada. I don't know, but
hey, listen, you got to use those airline miles, however you can. Shit. So
here's the best part of this fight. So before Kyle pokes Krzysztof in the eye, he knees him in the balls.
God. I can't wait to hear him just bust on Mike Kyle every time. You're merciless, and I love it. No, yeah, that's so weird, because it's like, oh, well, an eye poke, well, that, it's what it is. It's unintentional, but then you're like, oh, and he also hit him in the balls, and then it's like, you're going to have this reputation of being super dirty. Oh, man, what do you make? He's the gift that keeps on giving the more you dig.
The eye poke was not unintentional. It was deliberate. He threw a strike with his finger down.
That's what I'm saying. Like, you kind of go like, well, you look at it, you just look at the results without seeing the fight. You go like, oh, well, it can't be that bad. Then you look at the rest of his career, and then you look at what actually took place. Go, oh wow, why did we not see this earlier? It's elsewhere.
Kyle is just really one of those West Sim guys, one of those Gilbert Ivell guys who just he can't keep it together, and he just is down to make it. He's a fighter. Like, he's out there fighting. He's not out there.
But hold on. Like Gilbert got this. You know what I mean? Like, he got himself together. Like, there's other with Kyle. It's like he's not just a habitual line. This is him. He's on that Czech Congo, Houston Alexander. Shooting, you're not trying. Meanwhile, you're like headbutting somebody in the laziest way that the ref's got to stop you. You know what I mean? That's the problem with Kyle. And I don't even know how you'd even sign him unless you really thought he was going to get fucked up to make your local guy look good, because that's a lot going around doing illegal shit like that.
Well, to his credit, he is a guy that will go out on the shield, and he comes for the finish. So he's got a lot of finishes, and he's been finished a lot. So you're almost expected to get some sort of action out of him, if not some really bad fouls. Like, seriously, go through this dude's record and look at how he wins his fights or loses his fights. It's like there's a lot of DQs and no contests for illegal activity and just draw because of a thumb to the eye or whatever it is. Like, it's.
Wait, how did the majority draw thing work before? Because I don't really remember too well. I know it was like they tally the scores up until that point, I believe, or is there? How does that work?
No, because this was a. You're thinking of like the. So like if the fight goes past, like, let's say the fight's in the third round and an eye poke calls a stop to the fight, then it goes
right. Yeah, it goes to the decision. Right.
But see, this was only 2 minutes into the first round.
That's okay. That's what I want to know.
This should have been a DQ or a no contest.
Right.
It shouldn't have been a draw. I don't know why they're calling it a technical draw.
My question was, like, what reasoning would there be for them to call it a draw? Because that seems I don't think I've ever heard of this situation like that happening.
California new to MMA and being weird, I guess.
Yeah, I guess.
A little rule set, or it could just be a mistake, a simple mistake.
Yeah. Yeah.
Or maybe it actually went to the judges' scorecards and they just decided it was a draw.
Oh, California.
I know.
So ahead yet so far away.
The craziest part is Kyle's still fighting, he just knocked out Daniel Gallimore in the PFL last November. So like he was supposed to fight on this last PFL card last week. So he's still out there doing his thing.
Yeah, he got yeah.
Christoph's done though. He went on. He was on the Ultimate Fighter. He fought at 205, dropped down. This was him at heavyweight, and went 6-3 in the UFC, which is pretty good, before retiring in 2011. So he actually had a pretty good career after this, despite fighting at heavyweight and looking a lot different, and despite having to fight a dirty person that is Mike Kyle, one of the top 5 dirtiest fighters of all time, I would say. Can you coach?
Yeah, probably. I'd have to look at that list again, but he's up there. I mean,
top 5. Come on, top 5.
Yeah, he has to be. He's got to be like number 3. I think that's where I'm. But I'd put him at a good like 3 or 4. Yeah,
he's like he's like 3 or 2. Like him, Wes Sims.
And you're right. You're right. I'd put it at like number 2, maybe like behind Gerard Gordeau, because his was like looking to end your career. But I don't even know if he'd fit in the actual top 5. Like maybe we could have a way old school Bloodsport days. But yeah, Kyle would, because I mean, how many of his fights, like how many times do him and Congo were going neck and neck? But like, wow, that's the more I think
Gordeau,
you're right.
Gordeau gets a little bit of a pass just because he is from the Savage times, where it's not like
even though he literally blinded a motherfucker in Japan. But hey, what are you gonna do?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Okay, so that is the end of the main card portion. So we're going to jump down to the prelims, where there are quite a few notable names that are very early in their career. So we have Brian Ebersole defeating Matt Horwich by unanimous decision. This was a pretty grinding affair. Ebersole basically was the better striker and the better grappler here. Horwich just could not find the top position for any real amount of time and spent a whole bunch of time on his back. And I mean, that was basically the fight. But this was Ebersole before the harrow. As we know, when he got into the UFC, he would shave an arrow in his body hair, which was horrendous, and but like hilariously horrendous. So it was fun, and probably what he's known for most. But this fight happened, and it wasn't the best, but it was real grindy.
It's weird because you look at mission and movement oriented guy, and he's taking on a guy. I mean, that's such a rough fight for someone. I mean, Ebersole is just tricky. He's good at controlling guys and doing all sorts of like herky jerky movement and like stop you when you're about to punch him. And yeah, I can see how they thought this was going to be a fun fight, even if it didn't really end up being that much fun. But, it is what it is.
Yeah. 2 very experienced guys going at it. After this, Ebersole went on to the UFC. Horwich, he hit the IFL for a while, and then the UFC, and then Bellator, and then KSW. And I think he fights somewhere out in Poland, some regional show now. So both of those guys are still floating around. Ebersole might be done. He might still be out in Tiger Muay Thai. I know he was coaching out there for a while.
Yeah. No, he retired. He formally retired, I believe. And he decided to, because he had been living in Thailand full time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. So before that, we had Daniel Puder defeat Jesse Fujarczyk by submission, rear naked choke at 154 into round 1. Puder came in 1-0 from American Kickboxing Academy. He was a professional wrestler in the WWE. He actually won that little, what was it, the Tough Enough competition they had, where they went out looking for new talent and whatnot.
It was the Ultimate Fighter before the
Ultimate Fighter WWE version before Vic froze. He's completely frozen now. Like, oh, he's back. He's back. Fujarczyk came in 2-0, and he looked like it. Basically, Puder got the takedown. Ref stands him up. Trade in the pocket a little bit, and you had Fujarczyk just kind of fell over, and then Puder took the top position and started pounding on him and sunk a rear naked choke, and that was it. Pretty short and sweet.
Yeah.
Puder was fun on the mic, though. He did bring his WWE charisma with him, which was interesting. And he did go on to win 3 more Strikeforce fights and retired in 2009 with a perfect 8-0 undefeated record, which is kind of strange to see someone retire undefeated like that at 8-0. That's
moved on to greener pastures. He opened his own gym and had done some business.
Vic, I feel like we're losing you here.
How about now?
Now you're back.
Yes, no.
Yeah.
All right, awesome. Where did I leave you?
I don't know. Oh, you were talking about Puder going on and starting his own gym, and
yeah, he started his own business, and he just decided that he wanted to continue through that and not fight anymore. And good for him, man. Good for him.
Yeah, it was definitely an interesting case. And Phil Baroni was all about this guy too. Phil Baroni was like, "Oh man, this guy can strike, he can wrestle, he can talk on the mic, he's in good shape. Look at his body." I think Baroni was having a moment there. he was like extra into this guy.
Yeah, and he's probably used to seeing a bunch of beer-bellied, donut-eating dudes who only learn how to slap on a Kimura or two. I don't know.
That's true. Okay, so before that, we had Gilbert Melendez defeated Harris Sarmiento by TKO at 44 seconds into round number 2. Now, this was Melendez's 11th fight overall. He came in 10-0 undefeated. He was out in Shudo in Japan. Harris was 20-12. A lot of Rumble on the Rock experience over in Hawaii. And, Harris really did not do too well here. Gil pretty much got an early takedown, grinded his way throughout the round. Second round comes, and, I take that back. Harris actually did hurt Melendez at one point. He rocked him with a body shot there in the second that dropped him briefly. But after that, Gil just went in and got the takedown and just started beating the piss out of him. So Harris tapped the strikes because Melendez, I think, got pissed off that he got hurt with a body shot, and then just was like, "Oh, it's like that. We're gonna go ahead and turn it up here on you then," and that was about it. But it was good to see early Gil doing his thing, being dominant, and
I'm sorry.
Go ahead, Vic.
No, it's just that you do see a bit of the resilience that Melendez has been, but yeah, man. I mean, it was it's pretty impressive when you look at how Harris is fighting on the Hawaiian circuit and elsewhere and throughout Asia, and then that guy knocked him out. Like, shit, there's something special here that we need to pay attention to, and that ended up being true.
Yeah, Gil went on to capture the Strikeforce lightweight belt by beating Clay Guida by the split decision, like we mentioned earlier. Then he hopped over to Pride for a few wins, and then came back to Strikeforce, and man, he did really well out there, and left Strikeforce as their lightweight champion when Zuffa acquired him, and instantly got himself in a title fight for the UFC lightweight bout. Even though he lost, Bendo got his ass, but it was it was what it was.
I scored that one for Gil.
A lot of people did.
I'm still salty about that.
A lot of people
still salty. That one really got me fucking mad. Oh well.
And what's crazy about that is, so Gil goes on and beats Diego Sanchez, but has lost 4 straight fights since then, and currently sits at 1-5 in the UFC. And had he won that decision against Bendo, I think his whole trajectory might have looked a little bit different. He might not be sitting at 1-5.
Might not, but I don't know, man. I think it's the caliber of opposition that he faced. Really bad timing and bad luck,
Yeah, man, where he goes from here, though, I'm not sure. I like him, and he's been around for a while, and he's definitely brings it. So I'm curious to see how this all plays out with him, coming off of 4 straight losses.
I've been a big fan of his ever since the Japan fight. So, I really, I don't know. I mean, he's dropping down to, he returned already to featherweight against Stevens. Who knows knows, man? Who knows? You never know how one if Arlovsky could turn around even for a brief period.
So Harris had a little rough run after this, actually. So he goes to lose to Josh Thompson, and then he loses to Rob McCullough. So it's like, man, you get Gilbert Melendez, Josh Thompson, and then Rob McCullough. Like, that's tough. That is a tough stretch right there. And so he just
Apex level Razor Rob. Yes.
Yeah. So, Harris just kind of hopped around the globe and then eventually retired in 2014 at 36 and 26. Very abysmal record.
I don't know about abysmal, man. That's just like the wheels really fell the fuck off at the end. It's whatever. I don't know. I like there's a different standard for guys in that era.
I guess. All right. So before that, we had Crafton Wallace pick up a second round TKO over Ray Routh. And so, man, both of these guys, Wallace 7-1, Routh 1-0, not a ton of experience. Though Routh came out and got the takedown and it looked like he was going to be controlling this fight. But Wallace starts striking off of his back and actually cut Routh open. Ref stands the fight up, and Routh was gassed at that point. And he couldn't strike. So not only could he not strike, but he was gassed. Round 2 comes, and Wallace lands a liver kick that hurts Routh. Ref thought it was a ball shot, so he calls like a little mini timeout, which, poor officiating. Fight resumes. Wallace grabs a hold of the tie plum and just starts going ham with his knees. Routh dropped from a knee to the face. The fight was stopped. And that was basically the fight. Okay, so Wallace, he got subbed in both of his UFC appearances. He fought Martin Kampmann and Nate Marquardt, and then retired after an injury TKO loss to Patrick Cote in 2011. So finishing up 18-6-1, it's really not too shabby. And he got to fight some top flight competition, even if he didn't pass those tests. Routh, once more. He won a submission, and then he called it quits at 2-1. So that was it.
When you watch this fight, you look at everything played out and sort of like how these guys move and everything. You realize that middleweight's always been kind of weird. It's these guys who probably aren't they're too big to be welterweights, and they're probably light heavyweights. But like, how do I put this? It's not that these guys aren't good athletes. It's just that they're almost the clunkiest guys on the card. I don't know if you got that impression or not, but I seem to get that feeling from a lot of middleweight fights that I can remember. And it's like, yeah, I'm seeing it in this fight too. I'm not saying this like from a place of haterism. I mean, look, Routh was 1-0 at the time. Wallace was 7-1. So like, there was a disparity in experience, but not like a world of it, I don't know, man. This was just like a really weird. The vibe of it felt really weird coming in, but that beautiful knee to finish it off was like that was really a true highlight.
It was. I don't know if it's worth going back to look at this one, but maybe just the second.
Just watch the ending. Just watch the ending. Exactly.
All right. So before that, we had babyface Nate Diaz defeated Tony Juarez by TKO at 3:23 of round 1. This fight was at 165 pounds. This was Diaz's third professional MMA match ever. Right? So he comes in 1-1, having lost to Koji Oishi, who, if you remember, he was the guy who tried to block punches with punches when he fought Nick Diaz, and Nick fucking just pieced him up like insanely bad.
That is... Who the fuck, like, if anybody has to come up with, like, the most insultingly stupid fist of the...
Oh, we're losing you, Vic. I feel like this is the worst time to be losing you. I feel like you were about to hit us with some fire. We lost you. We lost you in the midst of the fire, man.
Oh, no. No, still nothing.
No, you're back now.
All right. So yeah, man. I mean, like, if you got to pull something out of your ass that's involving anime as a strategy to fight someone who can like really put out. Oh
man, we lost you again. But I get what you're saying. don't block punches with punches. That's not how it's done.
Back yet? No.
No, yeah, you're back.
Back?
We're just summing up.
No, I'm just saying,
don't block punches with punches. Just don't do it.
No, and why did it have to be a Japanese guy? Like, come on, man. Like, dude, save face. That's not how. Come on, man. Come on. Don't let the stereotypes come true.
It's like Kunimoto stuff there.
Yeah, pretty much. But this was actually dope, man. I like seeing how crisp Nate Diaz boxing was from day one.
And it's funny because on the broadcast, you know, the commentators were like, "Oh, Diaz needs to work on his stand-up. He needs to work on his stand-up. He's not as good as his brother." But he's facing this Tony Juarez guy who came in 1-1 from Gladiator Challenge. And you know how about Gladiator Challenge. It's Vic's favorite promotion.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. That's one way to put it. Yeah.
Just like Mike Kyle is his favorite fighter. All right,
every time that's right. Every time I have a conversation with someone who's like not as naive and I explain Gladiator Challenge, they inevitably ask me the same thing. They're like, wait, is that fucking legal? And then like now I really got to get heady and I don't like having to do that. But like fucking Gladiator Challenge, man.
Yeah, not the stiffest competition up in there. But so this fight, you know, Diaz comes out and ends up on the bottom right away, automatically goes for an arm bar. Juarez says, "Fuck this," stands up, walks away. He's like, we're going to stand. Nate gets up, gets a takedown, takes the back, takes full mount, takes the back again, and then just starts raining down punches until the referee said to stop. And that's basically how the fight went. So very, very quick TKO victory for Nate Diaz. Babyface, he looks so young here. Like I can't get over how young he looked. Like he looked like a younger brother here, you know. I wonder how old he was here. Can you do some quick math and just find out how old he was here?
You're talking about him like you wanted to walk in and tussle his hair, like, oh, you.
Yeah, like pinch his cheek, like, oh, little Natey, what are you doing here? What are you up to, whippersnapper? Get him like one of those hats with the little spinning propeller on the top.
Yeah, the fucking rainbow ones. Yeah. No, Nate, what was the question again? How old is he?
How do you think how old was Nate here?
Oh, well, I mean, let's see. He's 33 now. And what year was this? 2006. So, yeah, he would have been 21 then.
Wow, that's really young.
Yeah.
And I'm not checking your math either, so we're just gonna.
Well, I mean, 22 for insurance reasons, but yeah, sure, yeah.
Well, so Diaz, as we know, he went on to win Tough 5 and put on some really incredible fights with the UFC, including those infamous bouts with Conor McGregor. In fact, we're probably due for a trilogy. Hopefully, maybe. I would like to see it. But this was his only Strikeforce appearance. He didn't. After this, he wasn't. I don't know. He just went on to bigger and better things, and the rest of the scrap pack kind of hung out with Strikeforce, like Jake Shields and Gilbert Melendez, and he went the Nick route. But Juarez, he never won another MMA fight, losing.
No, I mean he only had one more, right?
No, he lost 10 straight.
Really? Wait.
10 straight.
Oh, okay. No. Okay, never mind. Yeah, I see what.
He sits at 1-12 right now with his last fight. Dude, his last fight took place February of last year. So this dude still might be fighting.
That was after an almost 4-year hiatus. So I mean, I want you to think about this. Here's a guy. This took place in 2006. He had a few more fights. He had, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4. Wait, let me get that right. 1, 2, 3, 4 fights in 2007. 1 in 2008. 1 in 2009. Took a 2.5-year break, and then after a few more fights, he took a 4-year break. Like this guy.
I don't know what his deal is, but he's lost 10 straight, and he could still potentially be fighting. So.
Hey man, listen.
If you need a win, and you're a lightweight,
and you need someone to like sell a lot of tickets in your area, yeah, that's who's.
I don't even know if he sells tickets, but if you're in Cali and you need a W, give Tony Juarez a call.
Fucking hell, what's he doing with his money? Jesus.
Oh man. All right. So opening up the event itself, the first prelim, Scott Graham defeated Chris Yee by rear naked choke, 2 minutes and 37 seconds into round 2. This fight happened, and that's about all I really have to say about it.
Yeah. Yeah, it was serviceable MMA guys who were early in their careers.
Yeah, Graham was 1-0. Yee was 1-0. Basically, Graham found top position for the bulk of the fight and then ultimately took the back and got the choke. Ended up going 2-1 in the Strikeforce and then retired 4-1 in 06. Yee went 3-5 after this, retiring 4-6 in 2010. So these guys really didn't do a whole lot of anything. Nothing of any note. And that's basically the card. Yeah, I guess we should maybe recap. I don't know.
Sure, why not?
So we had the return of Frank Shamrock, looking great, dusting Cesar Gracie early in the first round. Didn't even last a minute. It was a shellacking, but it was cool because it gave everyone the feeling that Shamrock was back. So there's that. We had the pro MMA debut for Cung Lee. Super exciting. He showed up. He got a beautiful knockout, one-punch KO. It was phenomenal. Everybody was excited for what he was going to bring to the sport. Clay Guida won a belt by beating Josh Thompson. I actually completely forgot that Guida even won a Strikeforce title. I had no clue. But, yeah, he captured the vacant belt, and he just fought this past Saturday and lost. So he's still around, ticking, still competing. We got Mike Kyle being dirty, but that is nothing new. So it was another day at the fucking office for Mike Kyle. We got Brian Ebersole pre-hero. We got Gilbert Melendez pre-championships. And we got a babyface Nate Diaz in his third fight ever. So, it's worth watching this card. You can find it on Fight Pass except for the Eugene Jackson versus Jorge Ortiz or George Ortiz to piss Vic off. Vic, what's your final takeaway for Strikeforce Shamrock versus Gracie?
It's a nice little curio. If you can make the time to watch these fights, I'd suggest you do it. I mean, even if the more boring ones, you can probably scrub ahead here, but just to see where MMA was at that time, which is always the case with a lot of these events that we like to do these retros on, but also to see how these people who were very influential to the careers of others and who went on to great things is sort of formative stage and sort of witness that growth, or at least just sort of get a piece of it off the top.
Yeah, it was cool. And it's cool to see the trajectory of Strikeforce and the parallels with what's going on in Bellator right now. So Scott Coker's fingerprints, he's always been known for a guy like a fighter's promoter who makes exciting fights, knows how to put on big events. You got Bellator, so you have to deal with some riffraff and a lot of, not top flight athletes basically, but I think he does a pretty decent job. And I thought he did a really good job in Strikeforce as well. So it's cool to go back and see how the event kicked off. And, Phil Baroni did a pretty good job of commentating, I got to say. I think he did good well. So good on him. Baroni is still fighting too, by the way. He just picked up a win in 2 minutes or something in some regional scene in Connecticut, I think.
No, it was King of the Cage. I had to write the preview on it.
Sorry.
No. Listen, I ain't doing it for the free, you know what I mean? But fuck, man, having to think about him fighting again and then seeing the fight and then seeing him demand that the audience, celebrate his win because it was a knockout, even though everyone was not impressed. I don't know. Enough
about Baroni, though. Strikeforce 1, I guess. It's not even called Strikeforce 1. It's called Strikeforce Shamrock versus Gracie, but pretty cool event. And, it'll definitely make you feel old going back and watching it. That's for sure.
Yeah, that's true.
All right. Well, that is our show. So thank you guys for tuning in. Vic, thank you so much for joining me. In the meantime, you can follow Vic on Twitter at Vic M. Rodriguez. You can follow me on Twitter at The Eddie Mercado. Read us both over at bloodyelbow.com. If you like the show, and I know you did, please give us a thumbs up. That's the like down below. It really helps us out. In the comment section, tell us about your favorite early MMA moments, Strikeforce, Elite XC, Pride, UFC, whatever the case may be. We've done K1 before on these retro shows. Subscribe to MMANation.com. That's DOTCOM on YouTube, on iTunes, SoundCloud, Google Play if we're on there as well. And stay tuned for all our shows. If I Did It, like we said, there's no mainstream MMA this weekend, so some of our shows won't be going down, but we will have the MMA Depressed Us. There is a Dana White Tuesday Night Contender Series that is going down tomorrow night. Vic, you said you got a preview coming out for that tomorrow?
That I do.
Vic's got a preview for that coming out on Bloody Elbow. I'll have a results post on Bloody Elbow right after the fight, so go check that out as well. Next week, we'll be on our regular, or no, not a regular schedule, but Vic and I will be doing a PFL vivisection maybe with Zane Simon, perhaps.
Yeah, schedule permitting. Yeah, I don't see why not. Fuck it.
Awesome. Well, did we miss anything, Vic?
No, not really. Just I think we pretty much hammered out everything here, and we'll be doing this again
soon. Awesome. Well,
probably
once again for tuning in.
To see you. Yeah.
Vic's going in and out on me. Good time to end the show. We'll see you next time. Now go be a good person.